Today's lesson is 2.5. This is identify a line as a function. In 2.4 we looked at different modes like tables and coordinate points and maps, and we identified whether they were functions. Now we're just going to look at a graph of a line and identify whether or not it's a function. This should be page number 10 in your notebook. The goal today, so after today you should be able to use the vertical line test, and this is something that you may or may not have heard of before, to examine whether a line meets the definition of a function. So we're going to use this vertical line test to determine whether lines are functions. The key terms today that we will talk about, function has already been defined, but we can go ahead and define it again in a little bit different way. So each x value is matched with only one y value. So what does that look like on a graph of a line? And then the vertical line test, and this is how you know a line is a function or not. So a line is a function if you can draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph and it not intersect more than once. So let's say, for example, we've got this line right here on a graph, and we want to determine whether or not it's a function. So if we drew a vertical line anywhere on this, let's say this is a graph, so if we drew a vertical line on this graph, if the vertical line only intersects the line that we're trying to determine if it's a function one time, then it passes the test. So anywhere on this line, if I draw a vertical line, it's only going to meet one time. It's not going to meet twice. So this line right here will pass the definition because we can draw all these vertical lines and it only intersects once. Here is an example of a line that does not meet the vertical line test. So if we had this line on a graph, and let's say it comes back this way. So this is a very odd shaped line, but it is a line nonetheless. So if we drew a vertical line right here, it only intersects one time. However, if we drew our vertical line right here, it intersects right here, and it intersects right here. So this x value, whatever x value we're drawing it on, has two different y values, this one and this one. So this is an example of when it intersects more than once. Let's go ahead and get into a couple examples today. So we've seen this before where we've given the coordinate plane with just points on it, and we drew vertical lines down each time we saw a coordinate point, just to see if there was only one point on that line. So passes, there's only one point on this line. This line right here, where h and j are both -1, does not pass because x has two y values. It's got one right here, and it's got one right here. So when x is -1, there's two different y values. So this one, if this was a line, would not pass. Same thing over here, right? If we drew one on L, would pass. However, I and K would not pass because there's 2 points for when x is -2. So those are kind of what we already done. So this is what it will look like to see a line. So this is an actual line, and now we're going to use the vertical line test. So the vertical line test is if I draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph, it should not intersect more than once. So if I drew it right here, it only intersects once. If I draw it up here, the vertical line test, it only intersects one time. So you could use a pencil actually, and you can start on the very left of the graph, and you move your pencil over all the way to the right, and if your pencil only intersects the line one time, it passes the definition of a function. So this one is definitely a function, and it's actually a specific type of function, one that you need to know the name of. This is called a linear. So this is a linear function. And you've seen linear functions before. This is the most common type of function that you'll see in algebra. So this is a linear function. Example number 3. So here again we have a line, and we want to see if it passes the vertical line test. We just take our pencil and we start on the left side and we come across all the way to the right, and if it crosses our pencil more than one time, so if it crosses our pencil twice or 3 times, then it's not a function. So it doesn't cross here, doesn't cross here, doesn't cross here. So this one again passes the test for whether or not the line is a function, and this is a specific type of function that you'll see more of in later lessons. This is called a quadratic function. Kind of makes a U. Quadratic function. Very, very common type of function in algebra. Example number 4. So if we're doing the vertical line test here, we start on the left and we're using our pencil, but I'm drawing these lines. I always do this. I don't understand why. It always happens. Draw a line, passes, does not intersect twice, only intersects once, only intersects once, only intersects once. And you can see clearly, now this looks like it's kind of getting straight, but it doesn't really get straight, so only intersects once. This again passes the definition of a function. And this is the third type of function that you will need to know the name of. This is a exponential function. You can see this general equation right here where the variable is in the exponent. And this is probably the third most common type of function in algebra. I won't spell exponential for you, so this is an exponential. Where the graph gradually builds and then it starts increasing a lot or exponentially. Okay, so this looks like a quadratic, but you can see already that this is not going to pass the definition of a function, because if we draw a line right here on this y-axis, it only crosses one time. So it passes the definition right here. But if we draw our vertical line, or we move our pencil a little further to the right, you can see that our pencil or our line intersects with the graph twice. Intersects right here, intersects right here. So when x is 2, it has a y value of like 1.5, and it has a y value of looks like 4.3. So it's got two different y values. This is not a function. And this is the last example today, and this example really highlights what a function is and what it is not. So you can see there's two different lines here. We've got this horizontal line and we've got this vertical line. So let's look at the horizontal line. If we do the vertical line test on the horizontal line, it is going to pass. Only intersects once, only intersects once, only intersects once, only intersects once. This horizontal line will only intersect with our pencil one time. So this horizontal line passes as a function. All horizontal lines that are flat like this, straight across, will pass as functions. Now the vertical line, if you look at this vertical line right here, if we use our pencil, eventually we're going to hit the line right here. And you can see that our pencil is going to intersect with this line way more than once. It's going to intersect with our line a lot. It's going to intersect right here, intersects right here, 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 right here. X has so many different y values on this line that it's crazy. So this vertical line does not pass the vertical line test. The vertical line is not a function, and no vertical line will ever be a function, because vertical lines have multiple outputs for a single input.